are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
Welcome back, family, to the Storm Tracker podcast. I'm Marcus Benjamin here representing for CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel live from Canes County, and also subscribe to the website CanesCounty.com for free. Use the promo code Miami30. And it's a Blue Monday. It's really a Blue Monday this Monday. And I do have Larry Blustein, longtime South Florida a reporter, also a reporter for Prep Red Zone as well, joining me today to discuss Miami Hurricanes football. Thanks for joining me today.
Not a problem, Marcus. Thank you.
Obviously, we have to discuss Miami's first loss of the season. The Hurricanes are undefeated no more, and now the team has to kind of pick up the pieces here on the bye week to try to finish off this season strong with 2 games remaining against Wake Forest and Syracuse. Likely, if they win those 2 games, they do get into the ACC championship game, and still their playoff hopes are still alive. But Blue, kind of wanted to just talk about the game. You saw it, Miami against Georgia Tech. When you were watching this game and seeing it all unfold, what went wrong for the Hurricanes in your mind against the Yellow Jackets?
Well, to be honest with you, the only thing that changed in this game is Miami's offense didn't bail them out. Because if you remember, ever since the Virginia Tech game, Miami hasn't played well on defense at all. And the only reason why it wasn't in the spotlight is because the offense would double that output. They came from behind 5 times, the largest margin being 25 points in California. So from a defensive standpoint, the game didn't surprise me because Miami's that, you look at Duke, every game so far at halftime, they were down 28-17. They were down here, down there. The only real thing, and they didn't get exposed because they've gotten exposed in every game defensively. I mean, you can mince the words, you could you could sugarcoat it all you want. Miami's defense is not good. They lead the ACC in giving up chunk plays, and that's not a good thing. While their offense is arguably one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country, the defense just, this time the defense, whenever if you get beat by the pass, at least you're still in the game because the clock doesn't move that much. But when you're getting beat on the ground, that means the first downs are picked up, the clock's winding, and the Miami was limited. And they only scored so many points. Well, because they were limited in how many times they had possession. And, against the teams that pass more, Miami would get more possessions. Even Duke, who ran some but passed more, or Virginia Tech, who ran some but passed more, and certainly California. So, I mean, if you look at the California game, that probably was probably illustrates what I'm saying the most, since they passed a lot more than they did run. But that's the only reason. It didn't surprise me. It just surprised me that Miami didn't do more offensively, and they had their chances. It just a couple of things are breaking down. Forget the defense. And the front 7 hasn't played well. It's no secret. Mauanoa is nowhere near, not even close to what he was last year. In fact, he may be pulled because he's just not making plays. I mean, let's be honest. And, who on that defense other than O.J. Federic, who's probably one of the best in the country? Forget about just being the best freshman. He's just one of the best in the country. But who else on that defense? Any of those linemen, even Baines having a tough go at it. He made a couple of plays, against Georgia Tech, but not enough to dominate like he did last year. All 3 of those linemen that they brought in, via the NIL or the portal, they've done nothing since the Ball State game consistently. As I said, the linebacker play has just been average at best. And secondary-wise, like I said, if it wasn't for Frederic making some plays, that would be a total disappointment too. You look at some of the guys in that secondary, Marcus, They're way underperforming their talent. They're getting beat on plays. They're not being able to come up and support runs, and that's it's not anything that you're stretching or digging up. It's just a blatant truth. Miami's, while their offense is the first in the ACC, their defense is down near the bottom, almost last, and that shows you that the offense has been carrying the team. It's just And it's going to happen. It's a pattern, even against Wake Forest. It's going to happen. And then obviously on the road against Syracuse. The only thing is Miami's offense. We as fans, you can stop concentrating on what the defense is going to do, because they're not going to do anything. It's just they don't have the total talent. The front seven is kind of diminished. So it's I think the rest of the way, let's concentrate on what the offense can do, because they didn't do well, but they didn't have the possession as many times as they've had in the past, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you, Blue. What was really telling for me in this Georgia Tech game was the fact that Haynes King was obviously injured in this game and, could only really provide offense with him running the football for the most part. He only attempted 6 passes in the game. They brought in a backup quarterback as well to try to, do something with the passing game. But my point is that the passing game was pretty much non-existent for this Georgia Tech team. And this was a one-dimensional offense that the Yellow Jackets put out there on Saturday, and Miami couldn't stop it. And that is probably the most demoralizing part of the game for me, because Miami just could not stop the run. And it feels like, they kind of got exposed here. And before I get your take, Blue, I do want to play, some audio from Mario Cristobal and Cam Ward after the game here. So just to kind of get their take on, how they move forward here.
All of us, in our gut, in our heart, in our gut, every ounce of our soul, it needs to hurt us. It does. And it needs to drive us. That's how we built this thing. That's the DNA of the program, and that is what we trust in and believe in. And we trust and believe in each other, so that's why we're going to get it done. This loss needs to hurt every.
It hurts at the end of the day, but all you can do is play the next game. Can't go back into it and try to relive that moment. But if we get the opportunity again, I'm sure it'll go a different way. So nothing's gonna change for me. I lost 7 games last year, my last score. So every winner gonna lose someday. Today just happened to be our day. And it's only 2 outcomes. You're gonna win or you lose. But at the end of the day, tomorrow I gotta wake up and I gotta go lift and I gotta do the same process. So it hurts because it was the first loss of the season. But at the end of the day, we still in a position to control our destiny. So we can go to the bye week. But good feelings. Get better this week and try to be Wake Forest.
So Blue, obviously, they are hurt by the loss, and they're looking to focus on Wake Forest in this next game. But to circle back to what I was saying earlier, right before the clip, was it seems like this team has gotten exposed with not stopping the run. And I feel like that's what these last 2 teams, and if they make it to the ACC championship game, will focus on. Did Miami get exposed by Georgia Tech?
No, they got exposed in almost every game, Marcus. Look back at all the games. That's why when someone says, wow, they didn't play well defensively. Well, they haven't played well defensively in any game. It's just like I said, it's the offense that usually kind of like if you're doing that 3-card monte or that little shell game, you follow everything and they want you to follow everything. But the offense is the one that usually bails them out. And as I said, they ran out of time. They made some mistakes, and that's the only reason, because we could have been sitting here talking about a 48-28 Miami win, and that defense that has not been present for the last 5-6 games would have been just another game. But now we're focusing on it more because they lost. See, and that's the thing. This has been a problem all year. I had this conversation yesterday, on one of the podcasts that we do. And I said, everybody's rushing and wanting to get rid of this guy or that guy. That's fine to be frustrated. But where were you the last 6 games when the when the defense was yielding high offensive numbers and a lot of points, and Louisville game in the 40s. And, it started with Virginia Tech, but the reason why it started with Virginia Tech is Miami started playing somebody. Ball State, Florida was not good, as we're seeing, and Florida A&M were not great. So Miami kind of did what they could do on both sides of the ball against them. But then when they started facing ACC competition, and let's face it, all the teams that they've played, are all above 500, and all had an opportunity to win the games against Miami. But to focus in and say they got exposed now is just kind of a little bit late. They've been exposed almost in every single game defensively, but we don't harp on it because they won and they outscored the opposition. And just go look back at all the stats from every game, Marcus, and you'll see, and just take away Miami's offense and look at what they gave up, and you go, oh my gosh, you see. But we didn't want to focus in on that because Miami was scoring 53 points against Duke, or 48 against this team, or 47 or 52 against another team, while the other team, look at Louisville's a prime example. You go back and look at the statistics, and if you look at Louisville's statistics, I think they had 491 yards, and you go, and we didn't dwell on it because Miami walked out of Louisville with a win, and and Louisville went in and beat Clemson. And so you take a look at, to honestly answer your question, no, I don't think they were exposed. They were exposed a long time ago. The only thing that they ran out of is offense, and they made way too many mistakes on the offensive side of the ball. And you can't say enough about the schemes that Dawson has had this year, because while Miami was giving up all those points, I think everybody lost focus on what a great job Dawson has done, with all the athletes that they have and trying to make everybody happy, all the receivers and the running backs. This is easily the best offensive team Miami's had 30 years, maybe even longer. But it's funny because people around the country, the pollsters are so waiting for Miami to lose so they could drop them the 9 spots or the 8 spots, what they did. I think the 12th in the AP, because they just didn't believe in Miami. But yet a team like Georgia could lose twice on the road, or a team like, Ole Miss, who struggled to win 2 weeks ago, beats them. So that's the thing. If you're not going to call this like it is, because as well as I do right now, everybody in the Big Ten is waiting for Indiana to lose, because if they do, they'll drop them way down. You are what you are, and Miami's a really good team. And after 10 games last year, they were 6-4, hoping to hang on so they could be a bowl eligible team, losing the last 2 games. So in a year, Miami's come so far. And I think we failed to realize that. And when you kind of minimize or start conceding defeat, or more, you have to have moral victories. This isn't like Miami's been 10-1 3 years in a row. They've struggled the last couple of years just to get bowl eligible. So I look at what they've done so far, and I'm extremely pleased. You got the best offense in the country. So it's a give and take, and like Cam Ward said, we lost 7 times last year, so you're going to lose sometime, because it's college football, and you are. Georgia Tech has come up with some big wins. Their defensive schemes are really good. They've done a nice job. I thought Brett Key in some ways outcoached Mario Cristobal. Both of them are offensive linemen, and they both everything was predicated up front. So to answer your question, no, I'm not. I don't think Miami got exposed. I think that was that ship passed 5-6 weeks ago. So, but the only thing that we're talking about here on this Monday is a loss. And the only reason why is because Miami's offense didn't score 35 points like they usually do. And they had their chance to do it. They opted not to kick the field goals. And, they lost by 5 and they could have won by 1. So, but that's, you give and take. They have this week off. They kind of, rest and relax a little bit, and then get back on the horse and get Wake Forest for their final. Seniors will have their final game at home, which is going to be really, really emotional.
Yeah, it is.
And then the day after Thanksgiving, they take off and go up to Syracuse, New York. And you know that Syracuse has been pointing to this game from the beginning of the year because they figured this may be a game that they could take Miami out of that ACC title game and, you know, put Clemson and SMU in it. But like you said, Miami wins out. They win the next 2 games. They'll play SMU in the ACC title game, and then they're back in the playoffs.
Yeah, Miami has a lot of issues to kind of resolve during this bye week. The defense being one of them, stopping the run. Obviously, Cam Ward, I guess, you know, taking care of the football. Wasn't the first time he's had trouble taking care of the football this season, and you know, just I would say being a little bit more maybe creative on offense as well. You kind of want to see a little bit more creativity, especially with the running game. I feel like a lot of the runs are inside the tackles. I'd like to see what Georgia Tech did against Miami. Do a lot of, you know, maybe jet sweeps or, you know, runs outside of the tackles or some more read option type of plays. That's what I would like to see in these next 2 games. We'll see if they fix those issues. You talked about the ACC championship game. We've talked, you know, pretty negatively, I guess, about Miami so far on this podcast, but it's not all, you know, storm right now here on the Storm Tracker podcast. There's still a light at the end of the tunnel. Because if they win out, they likely will go to this ACC championship game. You talked about them playing SMU. They could play Clemson. Maybe it's likely either Clemson or SMU, depending on how this plays out. Out of those 2 teams, or any other teams, if they do win out, which team would you rather the Canes see in the ACC championship game?
SMU, because their defense isn't as good as Clemson's, and that's the thing. Miami could go a 58-55 game with SMU. I don't think that Clemson will yield that many points. Clemson will be more like a Georgia Tech. There'll be more assignment football, and they'll score on you. Klubnik has done a great job. They got a good running game. They're big up front. So I would much rather see SMU, where you have an opportunity. There's a little motivation with Brashard Smith, who obviously is the 3rd leading rusher in the ACC. I don't ever remember him carrying the ball from the line of scrimmage the last 2 years. It's you know what, though, the whole thing is Miami's just got to take care of business. And you were in the press conferences with Ward, and when someone questioned him last week after the Duke game, they said, do you think about maybe not making those plays where, you know, he threw that interception or, you know, or near interception? And his answer was, excuse me, for every 1 play I make like that, I score 5 touchdowns. So that's his mentality. You know, I mean, if you take away, you know, his ability to do that, then you're taking away a guy who's potentially a Heisman Trophy winner, because you can't start putting a governor on him, and you can't start telling him, don't do that, don't do this, because then that wouldn't be him. And You've rode with him all the way he's played, and you got to continue to ride with him. You know, you have to trust that his judgment is going to be, you know, he gets rid of the ball really quickly. It's just that, to me, some of those plays, you know, and I'm nowhere near an offensive coordinator, and Dawson has done a great job. But some of those plays where you think, you know, what happened to that little sideline play to Sam Brown that's worked 3 times? Or what about that little, you know, the little end to Restrepo over the middle? They went away from that. What about Cam Ward running more? He hasn't run more. So what that does when he goes back to pass, what that does is that brings everybody up, because they know that he's not going to run. So they're all, you know, they're going to blitz. They're going to put the linebackers. So if he escapes like he does, and then all of a sudden in front of him is a safety, who's 11 yards upfield, take off of the damn ball. You know, I mean, that's the one thing you look at, you know, Haynes King, that's what he did. You know, I mean, not that he was a threat to pass because of the injury, but when he broke that first level, he looked and he saw the next guy 7 yards away. So, I mean, that's what he's got to do. And I'm not saying all the time, and I'm not saying to the point where he's going to get injured, but if he sees an opening on like a draw play or a potential quarterback draw, take it. You know, take it. Yeah. Because what everybody's doing now, and it started, a couple of weeks ago, is they see the FSU game, how FSU took Restrepo out of the game. So they're seeing, and remember, he's a catalyst. Whatever he does, the team. I thought a telltale sign when Arroyo caught that long ball. I thought, well, great, we're going to go to the tight ends. We went twice.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot of finger pointing. There's a lot, but the very fact is they're 9-1 going into their off week after 10, 15 years of crap, not even having, at least Miami's in the conversation for a playoff. See, last year they were basically in the conversation to see if they'd win 6 games and the last 2 years to be bowl eligible. And, that's the one thing that they win it out and they go to the ACC game. Let's say they make it into the playoffs. They got an opportunity to play, a couple of decent games there and finish off on a high note with a great recruiting class again, with potential NIL kids coming again. I think that we could, everyone goes, oh, well, next year they're going to be FSU. No, they're not. They're not going to go from 13-0 to what FSU's done. The only reason FSU's done that because they recruited horribly, and they didn't hit in the portal like they did the years before. By getting Bethune or getting some of those Johnny Wilson kids or Coleman. And then a quarterback like they had. I mean, they struck gold. But the thing is if Miami doesn't strike gold the way they have this year, they still got all those talented young kids that are taking, getting a lot of snaps this year. And O.J. Frederick being one of them, the Baines being another. They got a load of talent. The receiver-wise, they got all those running backs. They haven't even used Lyle, that much over the last couple of games. So they've got talent. And that's the one difference, and I could tell Hurricane fans right now, don't let anybody con you into thinking they're going to be 1-12 next year or 11 next year, because they're not. They're going to be, they got great home games against Notre Dame and Florida next year. A lot of these kids are going to either flip that are recruits, or you're going to see a lot of this out of this portal. They're going to see the success that Miami had, the fun they had, the 12 games that they'll be on national TV, and they're going to want to come here. And I think that's a positive, but the only way you do it now is you just finish it off, concentrate on the offense, because you're not going to fix things in 2 weeks on the defense. It's not going to happen. You haven't been able to do it in 9 weeks. So I just say you shore up a couple of things. You maybe, your schemes have to differ. Wake Forest is a team that runs pass. So, they do both. So just be on guard. But the one thing is I always, I went to University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and when I was there, their basketball team didn't care about defense. They just outscore you 130 to 110. And that sometimes, you have to play on the strength. And you know what, you could point all the fingers you want at at everybody on the defense and all the coaches and the coordinator, but at the end of the day, the offense is going to win Miami the championship, or get them into the playoffs. That's just the way it is. And last Saturday, they fell a little bit short. And I think that in any game, it's funny that the Georgia Tech game 2 years in a row had everybody thinking. And but this time around, you're thinking of making the playoffs. And if you could use that game as a springboard, for the next 2 games, then that loss served the purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Miami is in a situation where they have to basically win out to make the playoffs at this point. I would say there's a very slim chance that they win the last 2 games, make it to the ACC championship game, and lose and make it into the playoff. They'll certainly be a bubble team at this point, as you can see from the college football playoff rankings that put SMU just outside of the playoff, the only other ACC team in the top 12. So when I saw this game, Blue, it obviously kind of was a reality check for me. I mean, we're in the press box, so we kind of discuss what's going on during the games, and we seen this defense be mediocre for the most part in ACC play. But to me, it really told me that this team can still win the ACC with the offense, but I don't see them going any farther than just making the playoffs, to be honest. I don't see them going any farther than that, in my opinion. Well, what say you on that? If they just quickly, like, do you see them making any noise in the playoffs if they make it?
From the projection last week, they play like Texas or Alabama. No. It's just teams will bury them early because they'll play them well defensively, and Miami won't be able to stop them. So that's going to inevitably be it. Miami's a really good football team. The offense has done a great job, but to expect that they could go from a team that lost to Rutgers in the Pinstripe Bowl to playing for a national title is just not realistic. I don't care what you do. I mean, you got to have chemistry. You add those players. I think if Miami comes out of this season with 11 wins or 12 wins total, Jesus, what a 1,000,000,000% difference it was. And then that gives you no one ever likes to concede defeat, but you got to be realistic though, Marcus. I mean, there's times where you say to yourself, where Miami was not a top 4 team. Sorry, they're not a top 4 team. They're just not. They may not be a top 10 team, but the very fact is all they need to do is be a top 12 team. And that's all they need to do this year and make the playoffs, and whatever happens. But you get an opportunity, to tell these kids who come on campus, from Ohio State or Michigan or wherever they're transferring from, say, last year we were a playoff team. You know what? And with you, we're going to take this thing further because we have perhaps one of the best young classes over the last 2 recruiting cycles. So combined with them and you, it will maintain, and we're going to get better, and our defense will improve, and our offense, we're not going to get a Cam Ward, but you're going to get somebody else. Yeah. You're going to get another marquee running back like Damian Martinez. You're going to get a marquee receiver or offensive lineman. So, you know what? The whole thing is, if you remember, Miami and USC back in the day went on probation at the same time. Miami went after a 5-star running back in Duke Johnson. USC went after 3 5-star linemen because, remember, they were limited on their recruiting because they couldn't, they didn't have enough recruits because they stripped them of recruits. So what you do is you build the fortress, and those 3-star running backs are going to be just as good as 5-star because they got all those holes being opened up front. And I think that's a philosophy Miami has to take, that you continue to build the interior, you build with offense and defense. And I think, too, in this last couple of games, they got to start playing other kids like Pickett. They got who certainly has made inroads. The kid,
he got his first sack a couple of games ago.
Yeah. But all these guys that are getting in, they need to continue to put them in. Scott needs to play more. Guys that are making, the kid, the freshman defensive end, they needed to get him in there. You just got the kid from Alabama, number 44, the linebacker. Can't think of his name. Outside linebacker kid, but he's in
Cole
McConaughey. Get those guys in the games. Why not? I mean, are you going to do any worse on defense? No. The defense is horrible. So try to get these young kids into the game. They're playmakers. I know Popo's hurt, but if he returns, get him back in. They're playmakers. I hate to dirt like guys like Wesley and Mawanoa, but they're just not getting it done. They're just not getting it done, but they're also not getting help from the front four. And, early on it was easy for them, but they're getting no penetration. You watch the offensive line, just go back and watch that game. I watched it last night again, and Georgia Tech did so well up front with schemes that nobody ever had a chance. Even Bain didn't have a chance. The only couple of plays Bain made was that one where he reached back and reached out and took the kid's helmet off. And, other than that, they never penetrated. I'm not going to say that Guidry is going to run scot-free and without any criticism, because you still, even though you don't have that talent, the good recruiters kind of improvise and utilize, what you have. And I don't think that they've utilized what they have on that roster. And I think they need to start doing that. I don't care if the kid's 12 years old. Get his ass in there. You know, I mean, if he can make plays, he's on that team. He's wearing the damn uniform. I don't care about egos. I don't care how much you paid for Alston or you know, any of those kids, you know, Barrow or any. Who cares? At this point, you want to get the best kids on, best players on the field to make plays. And bruised egos, you know, big deal. You know, I mean, if you want to be a team player, the best kids have to make it. And I think the McConaughey's and guys like that need to get more reps, especially in the Wake Forest game. And if they do well, then start inserting them the more plays.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of some young guys, I know we're a little over time, but I did want to kind of get your opinion on the Miami commits that are playing in the high school playoffs starting this week. Of course, nobody knows more about high school football here in South Florida than Larry Blustein. Of course, there will be a couple of guys that will be in the playoffs this week, including Drake Stubbs, you know, not from South Florida, but he will be in the playoffs as well as Gerard Pringle. Armwood has looked really good this season. What are some of the Miami commits that you are interested in seeing in the high school playoffs this season?
Well, you bring up Pringle. He's got an opportunity to land right here at Pitbull Stadium for the state championship game in 6A. So the fans will get another chance to see him up close and personal like they did in the kickoff classic against Norland. You mentioned Drake Stubbs. You know, Mandarin hasn't had the great year, but then again, they lost a lot of key kids during this season. I think he's got an opportunity. It's going to be tough for them this year. You know, there's a different classification than they were last year. They're 6A, so they've got a road because they're going to have to beat Armwood and they're going to have to beat Tampa Bay Tech I'm sorry, because Tampa Bay Tech's 5A. Also, you got the kid Pickett from Zephyr Hills. You know, hopefully Miami could sway him, you know, especially because of the fact that there's, you know, a lot of interest and he spent a lot of time here. Fitzgerald from Columbus, who gets things going this week on Thursday against Spanish River. He's going to be one of the guys to keep an eye on. The Chaminade kids, obviously Chaminade pretty much has a cakewalk to their 9th consecutive state championship because they'll probably end up playing Clearwater Central Catholic again. Hopefully that, you know, they'll get a couple of kids back, you know, from injury. So they've got a few kids that, you know, and a couple of players too, potentially. So there's a lot of teams around town. I mean, St. Thomas Aquinas will be playing. Miami hopefully is going to try to make some inroads with a couple of players there, younger players. You know, Mika Fitzpatrick's brother, easily one of the best in the country. Got Joshua Moore from West Broward. They'll start their playoffs this week against Flanagan. There's a lot of kids.
Tony.
Yes, Malachi Tony, American Heritage, who will have the number 1 seed throughout, so they'll be home. And probably a 3rd round matchup with Norland, which is going to be pretty much their state championship game, because I don't think Orlando Jones could beat them. They're just too talented. Orlando Jones, you know, is undefeated, but they're just getting by teams like Wekiva and stuff. So there's
then you got the Miami commit Darion Coleman at Jones as well.
At Jones, they're undefeated. You know, like I said, having a great year. You know, the Edgewater kids, you know, are going to be in action as well. The Wilkerson also up at Lake Mary. Over at Sanford Seminole, Buchanan will be in the playoffs. They're a number 1 seed. So them and Lake Mary will probably battle it out. You look at, 5A, and you got, like I said, St. Thomas Aquinas with a couple of future guys. Plus, you take it upstate, and there's when they play for the state title, it'll either be Tampa Hillsborough or Orlando Edgewater or Lakeland. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's great because the fact that 1A through 7A will be here the 3rd week of December at Pitbull Stadium. We'll get a chance, for the next 3 years to have it right here in our own backyard, which is great. Nice. Obviously I'm a big proponent of the game going to Orlando because it's more centrally located, but I'm not going to complain that it's a half hour from the house. So and I get to sleep in my own bed and eat my own food. So
yeah, I'm excited for that too, Blue. To be honest, at least we're not in going to Tallahassee or or Daytona or something like that.
Yeah, Tallahassee was it kind of takes a lot out of you, that 7-hour drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff as always from Larry Blustein, joining me today on a Blu Monday for the Storm Tracker podcast. Thanks for joining me as always, Blu.
Thank you, Marcus.
That's going to wrap it up for the Storm Tracker podcast. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, live from Kings County, and also subscribe to the website, canescounty.com. Also, follow this podcast on all platforms. Until the next episode.